Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
This episode is brought to you by White Claw Surge. Great podcast pick, friend. No surprises there. After all, you're all about finding the tastiest flavors out there, just like White Claw Surge. And with big, bold flavors to enjoy, like blood orange, blackberry, cranberry, and more, it's time to go all in on taste. Unleash the flavor. Unleash White Claw Surge. Please drink responsibly. Hard seltzer with flavors. 8% alcohol by volume. White Claw Seltzer Works. Chicago, Illinois.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. Today, I'm joined by one of my colleagues from the Charlotte Observer, local politics and government reporter Mary Ramsey, who you've heard on Under the Dome before. Mary, thanks for being on again.
Of course. Thanks for the invitation.
So Charlotte and Mecklenburg County has made statewide news for several months now and gotten a lot more attention from the General Assembly, too. We're going to talk about the latest, including a primary for House Democrat Carla Cunningham and Mecklenburg County Sheriff Garry McFadden being called in to House Oversight. That committee hearing will be about a week after you all are listening to this. So let's start with that. Mary, you'll be coming to Raleigh to cover that hearing. What can we expect from it?
Yeah, so we are expecting numerous Charlotte area leaders to attend that hearing, including Mecklenburg County Sheriff Garry McFadden, Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Chief Estella Patterson, Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles, and the managers of both the City of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. And they are expecting to be asked about everything from public safety in Charlotte, especially as it pertains to our public transit system, in the wake of some high-profile incidents last year, as well as the city's diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI efforts.
So let's talk first about public safety. This is Arena's law became law, all the different parts of it within the past months. Are they really looking at just the Charlotte light rail killing? Is it beyond that? Is that, signs of other things too, as far as what we'll see from the public safety perspective?
Yeah, I think it's still at this point pretty largely focused on the light rail stabbing. Obviously, we had Arena's law coming in the wake of that, named for Irina Zarutska, a young Ukrainian refugee who was fatally stabbed on the Blue Line light rail in the South End neighborhood in August of last year. This is a law that I think a lot of the main consternation about it from local elected officials here in Charlotte has been the fact that it imposed a lot of additional requirements on our local court system, criminal justice system, without providing a lot of additional resources to help make that work happen. Sheriff McFadden and other leaders in the courts and criminal justice system here in Mecklenburg County have repeatedly said that this is going to increase their staffing needs, their funding needs, and they're really just not getting any additional resources from the state to make that happen. Mecklenburg County commissioners have said repeatedly that this is going to put a strain on the county budget because they're going to have to cover these additional costs. So it's really one of the main points of consternation locally. And then I think from the committee perspective, you can expect to hear a lot of messaging about sort of this high profile stabbing being a sign that Charlotte is as not as safe as our local, predominantly Democrat local officials have said. Charlotte Mecklenburg Police, I should say, did put out their annual crime report earlier this month. It did show crime, including homicides, were down in 2025 compared to 2024. That being said, a lot of Republicans are still sort of pushing this idea that Charlotte has become less safe. And we've really had a lot of battle between what the data is showing and then the feelings that, for lack of a better word, that come out of these high profile incidents, making people feel less safe, even if the data show that a lot of crime areas are actually trending downward.
With knowing that the numbers are one thing and public perception or what the feeling is another, what are you hearing in the Charlotte area from local residents? Like, are they pushing back at, these local government meetings?
I think it really depends on who you talk to. I think there are a lot of, obviously Charlotte is a predominantly Democratic city. Local Republicans really ran late last year on a public safety message and had a lot of big defeats in local elections. So it doesn't seem like that's really a message that's appealing to the electorate. That being said, I think there are swaths of people that are concerned, and it's not even necessarily the high profile things I hear about a lot from residents, especially at city council, county commission meetings. A lot of times it's the little things, people loitering, public indecency. We had a big fight with the city council a couple of years ago about recriminalizing some ordinances around those things, public urination, loitering in parking lots, things like that. People standing on street corners, asking for money and odd jobs, things like that. So it's not necessarily the bigger crimes that I hear a lot about from just random people on the street. It's more those little, what a lot of elected officials like to call quality of life issues that they're seeing around town.
So tell people, Sheriff McFadden is his name is brought up a lot at the legislature. So for those of us, in Raleigh, the rest of the state, tell us about McFadden.
Yeah, so he's somebody who's been involved in Charlotte for a very long time. He came up through the ranks of Charlotte Mecklenburg Police as a homicide detective, and was first elected sheriff back in 2018, and has always been kind of a divisive figure, very outspoken, very willing to sort of take the controversial position. And some people really like that about him. Some people respect that about him. Others, not so much. It leads to differences of opinion, I'll say, with some other officials in the Charlotte Mecklenburg area. And you've also had, especially in the last year or so, multiple former sheriff's office employees coming out and making allegations against him about mistreatment of employees, retaliation against employees, some mismanagement of the county jail. And obviously these allegations all sort of came to a head in recent weeks with this petition to remove McFadden from office that was filed by 4 of those aggrieved former employees, as well as State Representative Cunningham.
Mm-hmm. How, I guess, what can you tell us about those employees that brought them? Has there been, is this a result of more high profile controversies or just things that have maybe brewing, in his department for a while?
Yeah, it seems like these are things that have kind of been bubbling up for a while, and sort of the impetus being some higher profile departures. One of the former employees who filed that petition is a former chief deputy, so the second in command behind McFadden. And at the time that he left the department, he wrote a rather scathing letter to McFadden, which was then released to the media, decrying McFadden's behavior and handling of the sheriff's office. There was also a recording of Sheriff McFadden that media uncovered that included him saying some derogatory things to employees, using some racialized terms when talking to employees. So a lot of controversies that have sort of bubbled up in the last year to 18 months.
What about him as far as ICE cooperation, since that's, been a big deal at the legislature?
Absolutely, yeah. So Sheriff McFadden has been a big opponent of some of the legislation we've seen move through Raleigh in the last couple of years regarding ICE. And especially when we had then, in addition to ICE's presence in Charlotte, you had some controversial arrests in and around the courthouse the sheriff was pushing back on. He then said that he was able to have a meeting with ICE, that they were kind of able to work some things out, get on a little bit better footing there. But then you also had then Border Patrol coming into Charlotte, which then led to Sheriff McFadden again coming out and expressing dissatisfaction with how the federal government and federal immigration authorities were handling that situation. So sort of a bit of a moving target there. Seems the relationship seems to improve a little bit and then kind of take 2 steps backwards. So, but definitely something that continues to make news here as we continue to see ICE being active in the city.
What's the latest with the petition that you talked about?
Yeah, so had a bit of a development with that recently. So McFadden's legal team filed a motion to basically strike out the petition, saying that the petition had to have been approved by either the Mecklenburg County District Attorney or the Mecklenburg County Attorney before it was filed. It was not. The judge asked both the district attorney and the county attorney at the hearing if they would approve the petition. They said no. Our district attorney, Spencer Merriweather, did note that the State Bureau of Investigation is looking into the claims and that his answer might change based on the results of that investigation. So at this point, the petition was thrown out, but it was thrown out in such a manner that it could be revived based on the State Bureau of investigation of the claims in the petition, which we're still waiting to see. So it's gone for now, but very much could come back at some point, depending on what the SBI finds.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Mary Ramsey from the Charlotte Observer.
So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with Mary Ramsey, who covers politics in Charlotte. Before the break, we were talking about Charlotte and Mecklenburg County and a lot of officials that'll be coming to Raleigh for this House Oversight hearing coming up in about a week. Important thing to know about that is that House Oversight is the House arm of GovOps, which is this larger oversight group that's led by the Republican leaders. There are Democrats on the committee too, including Representative Carla Cunningham, which I'm using as my segue to talk about Cunningham and the primary she's facing. Governor Josh Stein, also a Democrat, endorsed one of her Democratic primary opponents, which is an unusual thing to do when you use primary as a verb. If somebody is primarying you, sometimes if you're an incumbent, there's other people behind it that weren't happy with how your votes, your behavior, everything, while you're already in your seat. It's not very common for governors to get involved. So who is Cunningham facing, and what can you tell people about her district?
Yeah, so the situation you just described is pretty much exactly what we're dealing with in District 106, currently represented by Carla Cunningham. This is a seat that's located in what we in Charlotte call University City. So sort of the northern part of town where the University of North Carolina at Charlotte is located. Very heavily Democratic district. Representative Cunningham, a long-standing incumbent, and for a long time has sort of been a pretty benign figure. A lot of her work has focused on healthcare. She is a nurse by trade. She's also a big advocate for mental health, speaking very openly about the experiences that some people in her family have had with mental health. But things got a little bit different the last couple years when she sided with Republicans on a couple of veto override votes and really ratcheted up after the second vote this past summer when she made some inflammatory comments about immigrants and immigration policy when talking on the House floor about her veto override vote. So sort of where all the drama stems from. And she is facing the Reverend Rodney Sadler. In her Democratic primary, Reverend Sadler is known for his involvement with the state NAACP, as well as the Moral Monday movement. And it's really picked up a lot of momentum for a primary challenger. As you mentioned, he's got the endorsement of Governor Stein. He's also hosted some pretty sizable fundraising hauls, especially for a primary challenger. There is another Democrat running in the district, Vermonto Bowman, who's a younger political activist. He actually ran against Representative Cunningham in 2024. She defeated him quite handedly. So a lot of the focus, even though it is a three-person race, has really focused on Representative Cunningham and Reverend Sadler.
What do you think the chances that Sadler has, even without, there's the Stein endorsement, but a lot of times if the governors get involved, that usually comes with some fundraising money, directing more for that. Do you think Sadler has a significant chance of defeating Cunningham in the primary, or do you think she just has had entrenched longtime support from Democrats?
I think Reverend Sadler definitely has a greater than average chance. The notable endorsements, the money that can come with that, the fact that there is a lot of dissatisfaction, especially amongst sort of the diehard party base that's going to turn out in a primary against Representative Cunningham. That being said, I think, she will probably benefit from the fact that it'll have been a while since everything went down. By the time people are actually casting ballots, still got a couple months to go until primary election day. So could sort of benefit from the fact that, especially in today's news cycles, things tend to sort of fade to the background. I think it'll really be a question of whether her challengers, Reverend Sadler, especially, is kind of the most challenger with the most potential, can keep all of the controversies from last summer at the forefront of people's minds. Representative Cunningham did release an apology video a couple of weeks ago, saying that she was under a lot of stress and dealing with some threats at the time of her speech, and saying she apologized for anything she did to offend people, and also sort of tying back into the first half of what we were talking about on this episode. She released that apology about 24 hours before she became part of that petition against Sheriff McFadden to get him removed from office, saying in that complaint that he was one of the people that was making veiled threats to her, she alleges, over that veto override vote last summer. So some intertwined there with all of the Sheriff McFadden drama in this primary as well.
And they'll be in the room together in the auditorium on the third floor of the legislative building here in the coming days. I'll take this moment to plug here at the News and Observer, and our Charlotte Observer colleagues have sent out primary candidate questionnaires to every single one of the 49 contested primaries in the General Assembly. That's a lot that we've sent out. Please fill them out. You have just a few more days to. This is for our voter guide to let North Carolina residents across the state know more information about their candidates. And of course, we have candidate questionnaires also for Court of Appeals, primaries, and Congress. So what else, before we get to our headliner of the week, what other primaries are, in that area that people should know about?
Yeah, so not a ton of super high profile primaries in Charlotte this cycle beyond Cunningham's district. Representative Tricia Cotham, who obviously was the dominant figure in all of the 2024 election talk in Charlotte, does have a primary challenger, Kelly Van Horn. She's a local teacher who just recently registered as a Republican to run in that primary, which is sort of part of a little bit of a trend that we saw in North Carolina this primary cycle. So I'm not hearing from a lot of people. They think she's got a big chance, but something to keep an eye on. And if Representative Cotham does make it through the primary, she will once again be going against a pretty formidable Democratic opponent, former Matthewstown Commissioner Ken McCool. You could expect, if it is a McCool versus Cotham race in the general, that campaign to really center on the controversial sales tax referendum last year in Mecklenburg, which Representative Cotham really became a champion of in the General Assembly.
Okay, well, we'll watch more for that. We are almost out of time. I'll move on to our picks for headliner of the week. I'll go first. Mine is on the higher ed / politics beat. We broke that UNC trustee John Pryor stepped down from the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees, the Board of Governors for the UNC Chapel Hill and the UNC system is pretty, been involved quite politically in the past several years. And Pryor is also tied to UNC hiring Belichick. So we'll see who the next trustee is going to be, which is appointed by the Board of Governors, and the Board of Governors gets their appointments from the General Assembly. So we'll see how that pans out. Mary, what is your headliner of the week?
Yeah, so I'm going to go just totally to the lighter side of things for my headliner. I am just absurdly excited for season 3 of Shrinking to drop later this month on Apple TV. I think it is just an absolutely criminally underrated comedy starring Harrison Ford and Jason Segel. Highly encourage people to get it some views so that we can hopefully get even more seasons. The new season drops January 28th, I think, so you can enjoy an episode or two before you lock in for all of our House Oversight Committee hearing the following day.
I love Harrison Ford, but Apple is one of the streaming, probably the only streaming I think that I don't have. I'll chime in with my latest streaming picks, which is late to the party on Stranger Things, but have gone all in. And as of the time we're recording this ahead of Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, I am at the end of season 3. So we'll see if I can get through 4 and 5. Again, mentioning Martin Luther King, you all listened to this on Tuesday morning. I hope everyone had a restful weekend. Of course, there's on Monday several MLK Day marches planned, and King came to our area. I'm sure he ended up going to Charlotte too, or around there, but he spent a lot of time in Raleigh and Durham and Chapel Hill when he was alive. So I'll give a mention that for MLK Day. All right, we are out of time. I'd like to thank Mary Ramsey from the Charlotte Observer joining us, and make sure you follow her coverage of everything Charlotte and Mecklenburg and what happens at this House Oversight meeting coming up. All right, and I'm Dawn Vaughan for producer Kevin Keister. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.